Hello everyone, my name is Anne Teato and welcome to the Psychic Matters podcast, episode number 83. I've just listened back to the intro and outro of this podcast and realised that the sparrows have joined us. You can hear their twittering above my narration. As you know, this is guerrilla podcasting, not done in a fancy studio. It's done from my desk and my healing space at home. And I hope that you will be able to incorporate their beautiful birdsong as part of your experience here. And it's quite interesting. This whole episode is about the land and the earth. And they are, of course, very much part of that. So we welcome their presence with us here today. Here's some interesting news. I just looked up the stats of my podcast and it's had over 100,000 downloads. Isn't that just amazing? It's incredible. Wembley Stadium here in London holds 90,000 people. So that might give you some idea of what 100,000 listening ears look like. And I'm so grateful to you, the listener, for your support and for tuning in each week. Thank you. Perhaps I could ask you to write me a podcast review. Even if you've written one before, you can write one for every episode that you listen to. And that would really help to push the podcast up the podcast charts. You can go to Apple Podcasts. I've just posted instructions on how to do this onto my Psychic Matters group Facebook page. Or if you prefer, you can leave your written review on Podchaser. And there's a link to that on my website, anteato.com. Click on the podcast page there. Thank you. My fascinating guest this week is Helena B. Scott, who has over 30 years of experience in studying the fields of history, the occult and the paranormal. Helena is a member of the London College of Psychic Studies and has trained there extensively. And she's also a member of both the Egypt Exploration Society and the Ghost Club, which was established in 1862 and is the world's oldest established association for researching the paranormal, and past members include Charles Dickens, W.B. Yeats and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Helena holds a diploma in psychic development and has trained extensively at our beloved Arthur Findlay College. She is a powerhouse of a lady. She never stops training and investigating and researching, and she is currently studying a fabulous 2-term course at the London Imperial College with wonderful historian Thomas Waters. If you are an Irish listener and you're living in Ireland, or you can go to Ireland and visit, you can catch Helena in person at an upcoming paranormal convention. And I believe it's the first paranormal convention ever to be held in Ireland. It's called Day of the Unexplained, and it's being held on Saturday, 18th of February at St Michael's Theatre, New Ross, County Wexford, and I know that there are just a few tickets left, so go and book one of those. Well, I was delighted that Helena found time in her oh-so-busy schedule to join me in the Psychic Matters studio this week, where she talked about many aspects of her work, including resurrecting ancient ways long forgotten to breathe life into our current modern-day existence. I just know you are going to find this episode captivating. Today in the studio, I have a very special guest. She is a psychic investigator, a mental and light trance medium, a writer, a historian, a spirituality coach with a diploma in Jungian psychology. She specialises in secret history and the occult and sacred geography and many, many, many more topics, which I'm really excited that she's going to talk to us all about. Helena B. Scott, welcome to Psychic Matters.
Hi, Anne. Good morning, and so happy to be here.
It's so lovely to see your face across the Zoom. I know that we've met in person and we'll talk about our beautiful meeting a bit further on in the interview. But Helena, I know that you work really differently with the paranormal, and I'm fascinated about the types of work that you do and all the different topics and specialities that you hold. Talk to us about the work that you do.
So I combine all of my specialities and areas of interest when I work with the paranormal or when I work with a person. I also do consultations. So with the paranormal, for example, when I arrived at Loftus Hall, my last major investigation and the subject of my book, Loftus, the Hall of Dreams, the first thing I did was look at the land. You see, I do no research before I get to a location, and I let the land and the location speak to me. And that's looking at the geography of the place. So we're talking sacred geography, all the features, the geographical features and aspects of the land. In sacred geography, we have, of course, the ley lines, which I'm very sensitive to energy, so I do feel them. And I did feel them in Loftus Hall. And I knew there had to be ley lines. And of course, later on, I researched them, mapped them, and so on. But also, ley lines and places of sacred geography tend to be the creators of myths. So myths normally have no author. And when they have no author, we say that they come from the land. And I always say that there's an element of truth in myths. There always is. So if we know the myths of a place, we already have a little bit of a clue as to what could be behind a story. So that's the first thing that I did, kind of investigate, all the myths, the real myths, not the modern myths, but, going back to Druid times. The area of Feathered-on-Sea was part of a large forest from County Wicklow, which is called the Dark Country. And it extended from County Wicklow till Feathered-on-Sea, which is where Loftus Hall was. And Feathered-on-Sea was the forest on the sea. That's how it was known. So,
and when you got there and you say the land spoke to you and you talk of the ley lines and you can feel all this energy yourself, for people listening who perhaps don't feel what you can feel, can you describe a little bit about what that feels like or how you interpret the land?
Yeah. So I tend to get a pull, like if it was a rope attached to my stomach, sort of tugging me, when I feel energy from a ley line. And there's a game I play with my son. I've got a teen son. And this is quite fun. But sometimes we get in the car, especially if we're staying somewhere for a few days, and we'll be playing hunting ley lines. And what that's about is just getting in the car and turning right or left, depending on how I feel, if there's a ley line, if there's a pull. And we always end up at really exciting places that are on ley lines along the way and end up in these big vortexes, where 2 or 3 ley lines cross as well. So, for example, one of these places we stayed at Kinnity Castle in County Offaly. County Offaly is known as Ireland's most haunted county. Now, there was somewhere I had read something about Kinnity Castle, Lep Castle, and another castle, Charleville, being the haunted triangle. Now, if you plot these on a map, they are not a triangle. And I always check everything with my maps. I'm very, a fact checker as well. So I thought, where did they get the haunted triangle from? Where is this coming from? So of course I went back in my head to the knowledge of history and myth and sacred geography that we tend to talk about center places in antiquity. Center places were places like Delphi. The temple in Delphi was once a center place. In Ireland, the hill of Usnash is a center place, which is actually pretty much in the center of Ireland. So I took a compass and a map and I kind of put it pretty much in the middle of, Clonmacnoise is the main monastery where I ended up in County Offaly. And Clonmacnoise was referred to by the Pope as the center place of Ireland. So already talking about center place, I knew that had to be in a ley line and there was something special there. So I put the compass on Clonmacnoise and I did a circle. And sure enough, in this little circle, it included Kinnity Castle, Lep, all of these. So not so much about a haunted triangle, but maybe a circle of center places.
Wow, that's absolutely beautiful. And that pull that you feel, where do you feel it? You feel it in your solar plexus, do you?
I feel it where we have our soul, in our gut area. So it's directly speaking to the soul, which is kind of nice. Because for me, I see the soul as energy. And when I go to a location as well, and I pick up presences or I feel that we're not alone, I feel it's not just because I have some wonderful gift. I mean, you work with psychometry yourself, which is about reading energy, but memories can be read and picked up by people who are sensitive to it. And for me, the soul of a deceased person or even their memories, this is what we're picking up, but that's energy. So we are energy, the soul's reading the energy there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. I'm so excited about all of these topics. But tell us, Helena, where did it start? Because I know that your father has a background in teaching history. In fact, I know your father lectures and teaches history at the University of Texas at Austin now, and he has a Doctor of Philosophy degree in Eastern European Studies in History from the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. He is a hugely talented and knowledgeable historian. Tell us about that. Did your father influence your early life?
He did. He very much did. So my father was a former diplomat, and because of this, we moved around from country to country, and I learned quite a few languages, which I speak. I also work in translations. But as we moved from country to country, he would not only teach me the history of places, which he was teaching at the time as well, but the culture of these sites. And sometimes we actually went on to archaeological digs with friends of his, or, historical events, lectures, talks.
Wow, that must have been some childhood that he would have taken you out and about and told you so many fascinating things.
Sometimes my son sums it up as we are the Indiana Jones, series. He's the old father, and I'm kind of indie, and because that's our personalities as well, very much, So now that I'm working on books on the Knights Templar, that's very much kind of relatable in a way,
That is absolutely brilliant. I love that Indiana Jones reference. How fantastic. And I know that we've just spoken there very, very briefly about ley lines, but I know that you also do workshops in chakras within the human body. So can you say how ley lines and chakras maybe relate somehow?
Yeah, so I'm actually teaching one now to my students. It's called Ancient Energies in Modern Times. And what ley lines for me are, they're like the meridians in the body. So basically, ley lines are invisible lines of energy. And within the body, we have invisible lines of energy. We have a central channel, which is the Sushumna. And then we have the actual meridians, which are kind of little, for people who don't work in as little kind of energy lines within the body connecting or the body parts, and just kind of going off from central channel and the main chakras. The chakras are spinning wheels or lotus flowers, so energy points. And we have earth chakras. The earth chakras would be where the two energy lines or three would cross the ley lines. You get a vortex, and you can get natural ones, but you can also get man-made ones. So very much like the earth chakras, our own chakras connect these energy lines, and we can use the energy of earth chakras or sacred energy sites, with our own chakras as well. They affect the energy of the chakras and our own energy, and we affect the energy of these sites as well.
It's fascinating. It's just absolutely beautiful how interconnected we are, and we don't understand. We walk through the world. I mean, I go out for walks every day, but I never think to consider the pull of possibly what the earth is trying to tell me as I walk. Yeah, I find it absolutely fascinating. So your book, Loftus, The Hall of Dreams, it's a work of art. It's absolutely beautiful. Tell us what made you write that book in the first place. And tell us a little bit about the way it's structured, because it's not like any other book I've ever read before.
Thank you. So I actually moved in 2015 to the area of the Hook, which has the oldest operating lighthouse in the world. It's a beautiful area of the coastline. And Loftus Hall was a stately home in this area. Now, I didn't visit it. I stayed away because I just moved. And every time I did an investigation, it really took a lot of energy out of me. And I felt the call of the hall, but I ignored it for a whole year. And until one day I received an email from the hall saying I had won a competition to stay overnight. Nobody knew my address. I just moved to the area. So, of course, I understood that the house really wanted me there. So I went.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that you won a competition.
It was just crazy because I thought, but there it was. So I couldn't actually go on the night that I won. So I booked another night and paid for that. And I did a first lockdown at the house to stay overnight. And sure enough, I stayed, I think it was 6 hours or something overnight. As I was leaving there, while I felt presences, the worst thing that I felt, and I've never felt this, and maybe you can relate to this, I felt the presence of Van Tottenham, the spirit in the last room. I didn't think she died there. This would have been in a tapestry room, but I had never felt fear in a spirit of the deceased. It was really kind of really hard to describe, terrifying fear. And I didn't want to go home. It was the end of the night. I had to leave. And I thought, I can't leave. I can't leave her like this, you know. So that kind of started the whole research project. And I wrote a little short story for the blog of Loftus Hall. They liked it. And a few days later, the story was read by my colleague, Steve Myler, who I didn't know at the time. But the story of how we met is quite important and cute. And a few days later, I was in a local graveyard just doing time because I had an appointment and I was trying to see, you know, it looks quite pretty in New Ross, actually. And I came across a grave that said Myler on it. Now, I didn't know what it meant, but in my line of work, I sometimes feel I need to take photographs because it will mean something to somebody along the road. So sure enough, 4 or 5 days later, I received a text in Facebook from a Steve Myler who had read my story on the Loftus Hall on the blog. He really liked the story and he wanted to work with me and meet up. So that's how that went.
I absolutely love that, because that photograph is in the book, isn't it?
It is. Yes, it is.
That you've got a photograph of that name, Myler. That's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
But how you came to write it, Helena, how did you, why did you decide to write this book?
Eye-Opening Moments podcasts are real-life stories of adversity, encounters, and perspectives. They are moments that can lift your spirits, give you some food for thought, or move you. For the introspective mind that likes to reflect, discover, and find solutions or meaning in a complex life, listen to Eye-Opening Moments podcasts.
So I decided to write the book because obviously when I walked away that night, I felt that a great injustice had taken place and I wanted to I was intrigued, but more that I wanted to help her, and as I began to kind of pull from the string to unravel the story, I realized that there was a story there that was completely different to the story that we were being told about the house. It was actually a darker tale. The book, how it happened, the layout of the book, I designed as well. So the cover, everything, the cover has the coat of arms of the family embossed. I used silver because in alchemy, silver is for the feminine. And the story is about Anne, that's the main story. It's a love story, but she's the star of the story. So it's the feminine, it's the moon, it's the divine feminine energies, And then the cover, the photo on the cover, you can see it's just not been edited, nothing paranormal about it, the shadows, but because she lives in between the shadows and the light, she's neither dead or alive. So that's kind of what we wanted to show with the photo.
Just brilliant. It's such a work of art. And that's what I'm saying about this book. It's just got so many layers to it.
Thank you. And I'll add the outline because the outline is really important. And I always say that I didn't write the book alone. I didn't. Parts of the book were written through spirit writing. So I would wake up and then just, I don't know, suddenly in the morning I'd have 2 or 3 chapters that I'd written that made perfect sense, but I couldn't remember any. It was like as if, it was written in trance because that's what spirit writing can be, in certain times. But one of the days after 6 months, I woke up, I had all this information. I didn't know how I was going to put it together. And I called my colleague and I said, Steve, I know how the book is going to be. It's going to be 15 cards, which are the major arcana cards. Arcana means secret. So those are the cards used to work with major secrets in life, not mundane matters, which for me, this was very much something that had to do not with everyday matters, but something much deeper. Also because of the architecture of the house. It was esoteric architecture, Masonic. So, but anyway, and cards 1 to 15, if we spread them out of the Rider-Waite or Coleman-Smith, Waite-Smith deck, as I prefer to call it, because she deserves acknowledgement, Pamela.
Yeah, well done. Thank you. Good.
So cards 1 to 15 actually told the story of us researching the story and everything behind it. It was amazing, and even the characters, like you had the 4th card was the Emperor, the 1st card was the Magician, which was Anne's lover, who was a Freemason. And actually that card stands for a magician, a Freemason. And I didn't realize this. I don't know if you knew this because I found this out a few months ago. I was sitting at home going through the manuscript and I realized that throughout the book, whenever I mention Anne or there's pictures that appear that refer to her, they normally add up to 6. which is her number in the book, and her character card, which is the Lovers. But the Lovers is also nurturing female mother energy as well, not just the Lovers in a tarot. And what does 15 chapters add up to? 1 and 5. It's 6, isn't it?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So when I say that this was given to me by Anne, it was given to me by Anne. We can see it right there. And I only realized this a few months ago, you know?
It's absolutely so beautiful. And you've got the Empress, the card representing Loftus Hall itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely beautiful. The descriptions within the book are just fabulous. You've written this book yourself, haven't you? And it's the descriptions and the feelings that we can get from interpreting your words. It's almost as if we are standing right there, hearing all the sounds, inhaling all the scents of that beautiful location. And of course, it's beautifully photographed by Steve Myler. So tell us a little bit about him, because he's got a background with Scotland Yard, has he not?
He does. So Steve and I met in the very unusual circumstances I described before, after having seen his graveyard, a tomb in a graveyard, and then him messaging me. I didn't know him, but it's really interesting, before I go into his background, of the fact that both of us moved to the peninsula at the same time, summer 2015, from abroad, didn't know each other, moved to this little village and down the road from each other at the end of the exact same road. Strange. And we both worked with the police. We both had a history working with police in forensic investigations. So that was kind of really weird, you know. So Steve has worked with the Metropolitan Police and Scotland Yard. He was actually the head of forensic photography for the new Scotland Yard Crime Academy. So that's what he was doing before he moved to the area. So it's a bit strange that a village of 700 people, both of us end up in a village when both of us have that background. And Steve and I have had many coffees in his sun lounging room, which is quite nice, looking at the sea, you know, and thinking about, it's not a coincidence, is it, that we moved here? It can't be a coincidence. No.
There's no such thing, is there, as a coincidence? That's just beautiful. And he's photographed it as if it is a crime scene, hasn't he, with those beautiful interpretations of his photography?
Yes, Steve worked in the London bombings as well, and he worked in the tsunami that happened in Thailand as well. So for him, everything, we kind of approached Loftus Hall together as a crime scene, because it actually is a crime scene. I feel that Anne was murdered. I was shown this in dreams, that she was murdered by her father, and the baby was murdered by the father as well. So the baby was found behind the wall.
It's just extraordinary. It's a multi-sensorial book when you read through it and you look through it. It's fantastic. And it's a book that you just want to pick up again and again and again. But just a couple of things before we move on, because I've got so many things I want to talk to you about the rest of your work. But I know that there was a former entrance door to the hall, which had 1666, a symbol and a warning. Can you speak of that?
Yes. Well, the former entrance was on the side of the building, now not really used anymore. Now, 1666 goes back to when the Loftus family moved in. So Henry Loftus would have acquired this home during the Cromwellian confiscations. And that was the year also of the Black Death when they moved in. So that was already quite a dark omen to move in. And for me, that door is actually at the end of what is known the long walk. And it feels like, especially when you visit the house, now you can't visit it, unfortunately, but when you did tours, you were at the end of this corridor, which was all dark, and then you had this door sort of opening to the light. And for me, it reminds me very much of near-death experiences, the kind of tunnel that you see, you know, when you die, and then before you're supposed to walk into the light.
Absolutely amazing. And the locals were always in fear of that house, were they not?
Yes. I think this is due to the story that was spread with the devil being at the hall and playing a game of cards and romancing the daughter of the family, Anne Tottenham. And I think if we look at history, which is the first thing I do because I am a historian, and we look at the times and we kind of set the story within the time frame. 1798, we have a Catholic revolt in Wexford. So things were getting very heated up. These were penal code times, so the penal laws. And what these laws did was prevent any Catholics from owning land or having any wealth whatsoever. And if you married a Catholic, your status would be that of the Catholic that you married. So you would lose your possessions. So they were very, very tough times for Catholics. They were not allowed to worship or anything. So the story takes place, I'd say, between the death of the priest who supposedly exorcised Anne, and that's in the book for people who want to know if the exorcism happened or not. I'm not going to mention it now, which is 1773, and the death of Anne herself, which is 1775. So it's very close to the revolts. So I think if we look at that, the land-owning population were a minority, the Protestants, and the masses who worked the land were Catholics. They wanted the locals to fear the whole. They wanted to keep them down with oppression and fear. And I think that's why you spread stories, especially if the population were Catholics and devil-fearing people.
Yeah, that's really very, very interesting. So that was Ireland's most haunted building. Mm-hmm. What has happened to it now in 2023?
Yeah, so what's happened, it's kind of, for me, very soul-destroying, to be honest. The spirits were there. I did a little visit because the hall has been locked, has been closed down. It was sold to become a hotel. I understand an elite hotel, not open to everybody, but just to certain people. Well, I haven't seen the inside, but I've seen they've been doing extensive work on the outside. And I think they have been gutting out the inside. I hope not, but that is regrettable. But spirits, as you know, just because you're doing refurbishing, in a place, they're not going to move or go, they're going to be there. So I just went to visit them this summer, and I did a spirit release from the outside, just kind of touching the walls and connecting with them to try and move as many of them as I could, just for their souls, because I felt bad for them. Obviously I couldn't go in, I couldn't visit it. I just went to say goodbye and to say thank you, because they made it possible to get the story out. And without them, I wouldn't have been able to write the story and the book. And I hope that more people read the book, because only then, I think, will they get true justice of what was done.
Interesting. And you're bringing it back into print. Talk to us about that.
I am. So the book sold out. I'm very happy to say that we sold out. We only have digits, single digit copies that are exclusive collectors and personal editions for sale. These are very expensive, but they're worth it if anybody's interested. But I'm bringing out a paperback version of the book. Now, it won't have all the photographs or anything. It's just for the story and a few photographs, but it will be the story that's in the book in an ebook format. And that shall be shortly available in the next coming weeks on Amazon.
That's just brilliant. That's so fantastic. So people can get hold of that and buy a copy, and it's out very soon. So that's great. Fantastic. Yeah. When it's out, I'll put a little shout out on my Psychic Matters Facebook page for sure. Of course.
Thank you.
So, of course, you do many, many other things, Helena. Talk to us about esoteric architecture.
One of my favorite things, the messages hidden in plain view. For me, it's like a child's game. I love it. It's, again, it was part of what happened in Loftus Hall. So I don't really know why it was ignored by the owner of the hall. And I understand he was working with architecture, but also people who have visited it. But the first thing that I realized after looking at the land, I looked at all the features, and especially the ornate floor. That is in one of the rooms that you see with a big star in the middle. And that to me was, at first glance already, I knew it was Masonic. It took me 6 months to decode the floor, which I did. But there are a lot of messages in that floor. So because of that floor, I knew that the family had to be Freemasons, and they were. There were two founding members of the Order St. Patrick, and the Order St. Patrick emblem was on the floor, actually, and this is the third oldest Masonic order in the world, so this is quite relevant, The hall itself, I feel it was used as a Masonic venue as well. So the esoteric architecture there is relevant because it tells us that the family were Freemasons. And that the family also tells us something really important as well. The star that is on the floor of Loftus Hall is actually Loftus Hall is on a ley line itself, on one of those invisible energy lines. And this is what gave me the biggest clue. When I saw that star represents the Milky Way, which the Milky Way for Freemasons is Jacob's ladder, but it's also a portal. So I kind of looked at my colleague Steve and I said, there must be something that aligns to this, you know, at some point of the year. Let's put all the points of the ley lines in a software that he had to see what day of the year we got, and if, like Newgrange, Newgrange aligns to the sun, if we would get something. And of course we did. It was very creepy. So on one day of the year, this ley line, which in Loftus Hall actually crosses, there's 3 ley lines, but in Loftus Hall, we have an actual vortex of 2 of them crossing, aligned to one particular item in the sky. So on the 31st of October is Halloween, which is when the veil is thinnest between the 2 worlds. That's the day that the vortex in Loftus Hall and the ley lines aligned to the Milky Way, which is a portal. So the portal in the sky was reflecting the Hermetic principle, as above, so below, because we had the Milky Way in the sky, and it was on the floor tiles of Loftus Hall. So the Freemasons worked with energy, obviously, and the Templars as well, because the Freemasons are the descendants of the Templars. And the area, when I first arrived there, it was full of Templar ruins. So how anybody ignored that, I don't know, but messages hidden in plain view, that is esoteric architecture. And that was there for all those hundreds of years.
Absolutely fascinating. It makes me so excited to think that there's so much out there that we're not acknowledging because we're not open to, because we don't have the knowledge to interpret what is hidden in plain sight. And I had the good fortune to meet up with you, did I not, Helena? Not so many months ago, actually, in Ireland. And we took a visit. You very kindly took me with you on a trip that you wanted to go on, and I was excited to be a part of it, to Kilcooley Abbey, and you were able to interpret the building and the architecture there. I was fascinated. Tell us a little bit, for obviously people that weren't with us, tell us a little bit about what you discovered in that place.
So Kilcooley, I wanted to visit as a Cistercian abbey, and I wanted to visit it because it was important for my upcoming books. I'm doing another project with Steve Myler, and we're working on 2 books on the Knights Templar. So this abbey for me was important because I have a few theories for my book. It's not just going to be on the Knights Templar, but a lot of people don't know that the code of the Knights Templar was written by an abbot called Bernard de Clairvaux, a French abbot, who was the head of the Cistercian order. So Cistercian Templar is the same thing, essentially. And then in Ireland, we have the Cistercian Irish houses, and then we have some houses which are affiliated to the Norman houses, which would have been the French houses. So I was particularly interested in these. But Kilcooley for me was interesting because I have a theory with regards to the energy of these sacred sites. So I was trying to find architectural elements that would prove my theory. And one of them was architectural features of the divine feminine energy. So when I set out that day with you, I was trying to find a mermaid, first of all, which we found.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
The mermaid is not just there because it looks pretty or because it's just, let's just slap on a mermaid. But for me, the sacred energy of sacred geography sites, which in the Christian tradition are sites that feel closer to God, but in the pagan Celtic traditions are sites where the heavens meets the earth. That's a lovely concept of thin places. That's what sacred geography sites would be on. So in these sites, you could actually meditate or connect with the other world in a much easier way. And the energy of these sites is believed to be feminine. So for me, obviously, Kilcooley, the energy, you were there, Anne.
I was.
The energy was quite significant from the moment we actually drove in.
Yeah.
So seeing that mermaid there and then seeing what was next to the mermaid, we had a salmon and we had a carp. So the summon would go in Christian churches. There's a very typical thing in Ireland. They incorporate some of pagan or Celtic beliefs in mythology, which is why it's important to know mythology, into the actual architecture of the churches. So we have the summon of knowledge here, which is part of a tale, I think, with Fionn McCool. I think I can't, excuse me, Irish people, for pronouncing it wrongly, but so he ate from the salmon of knowledge, and there's a story about that. But it's interesting that we have the mermaid, and the salmon of knowledge is kind of being attracted or kind of going towards the mermaid. And then there was a carp as well underneath it. Kind of both of these fish were kind of going towards the mermaid, as if the mermaid is calling them. The mermaid representing the divine feminine energy, which gives you, apparently, this was believed, through this energy, you could access the higher wisdom. And the carp is a symbol of Hecate as well. Hecate is divine feminine energy. So again, followers of this divine feminine energy would have been attracted to the energy of the sacred sites, to the mermaid, to that energy. So, and I have reason to believe that the Templars were not just, as people wrongly believe, because if I can take the space here to say this, I'd really love to say it, Anne. I'm kind of really fed up and tired of hearing people and historians say the Templars had a mission to protect the pilgrims on the Holy Land. Well, I just want to make it clear right here and there that the Templars were set up in 1118, but then they went off to the Holy Land for 10 years and they were digging and nobody knows what they were doing. And until the 1120s, 25 specifically, they're not doing any kind of protecting of anybody. And actually, the protecting of pilgrims' job was that of the Knights Hospitaller, who were set up earlier than the Templars. That was their job. It wasn't the Templars. It's been wrongly attributed to them. The Templars had a more mystical, spiritual pursuit, and they would have come in touch with groups like the Essenes, the Sufis, the Egyptians, all of these mystical groups that were interested in spirituality. And Jesus himself is believed to have been a member of these Essenes as well. And they worked with the divine feminine energy. So this is why it's interesting for me.
It's absolutely fascinating. I know I keep saying that phrase over and over again, but it is. It just blows my mind, all of this stuff. And while we were there in Kilcooley Abbey, I know you were picking up things from marks and engravings that were just in the wall. How do you even know these things? I mean,
so when I went to the Sedilia, the little Sedilia that was there, and I kind of stood right underneath it, and I did that kind of really weird sort of twist of my back, and kind of looked up, I felt there was something there that I needed to see. So I went there, and sure enough, X marks the spot. There was an X that had not been seen, at least by the guide, the lovely Liam that we had there. He commented he had never seen that,
yes,
and that the people he had worked with and the historians there had never spotted that.
And he'd played there since a boy. He'd been there all his life, and he's never seen it.
Yeah. So the X is used by the Templars it's one of their symbols in esoteric architecture, also because it goes back to the rite of resurrection, which was a death in life to awaken to the higher wisdom. And the rite of resurrection goes back to Egypt, which is where we first know it was used. It was probably used before Egypt, but the pharaohs, when they were buried, they were buried like that with their arms crossed. So in a crossed arms position, in the sarcophagus. So that comes from that time. But this refers to, it's actually on the pyramid of Unas, a ritual rite of, it talks about a death in life to awaken to this higher wisdom using the energy of the sacred sites. So the X was used by the Templars who believed in the higher wisdom. And also it was used a lot of times, not just to say we were here as Templars, which is kind of like a Templar graffiti, but also when the death of a Templar occurred in an area, they would place an X. The X again also are marking the passing of time. So the X reminds us also of the hourglass. If you look at it, it's the actual hourglass figure as well. And it reminds us that the passing of time is a thing here, that we're only here for a short while, So it is very much a symbol of the Knights Templars. So to have discovered the X, which also, by the way, goes to Scotland. Scotland is very much in the flag, the X, And it's where the Knights Templar had a lot of properties. And it's also where Freemasonry emerged after the Templars were disbanded in 1307. So Scotland, Ireland, and France, but Scotland has the earliest Masonic lodge, St. Mary's in Edinburgh, which dates back to 1599. So it's no coincidence that we have an X, which is a Templar sign on the flag of Scotland. So
it's so brilliant. And what was really fascinating for me, while I stood there in Kilcooley Abbey, there was no roof, it's a ruin, and there was a holy water font which was built into the wall, very, very old, and it had filled up with rainwater. And you were off on the other end talking to Liam about your incredible knowledge, and you had these wonderful conversations. And I went down to the water font and I thought, I'll do some scrying in here. And so I stared into that water and I let my mind drift off. And at the time, I had no idea, but I was seeing Egypt, camels. I was seeing the pyramids and desert. And I couldn't understand. I thought I was going mad. I couldn't understand why I was seeing Egypt in the water font in an Irish abbey. Now you've spoken since about the X and the Knights Templar and the connections to Egypt, and it all makes sense.
Yeah. There is a further connection to Egypt as well, and it has to do with my last name as well, Scott. So Scott is actually a name that can be traced back to the Scots, who are not the people of Scotland, but actually were the subjects of Queen Scotia of Egypt, who were living in Ireland. The Scotty, they were known as Scotty people. They're actually living in Ireland, and some of them went to Scotland and then became known as the Scots later. But Queen Scotia was an Egyptian princess that came to Ireland, established here for a while. She was actually killed in a battle and is believed to be buried in County Kerry in Tralee. So I have yet to go to her tomb, but she had a significant number of worship sites. I have yet to do the investigations as to whether she was in Kilcooley or not, but as you heard me talk to Leah, Kilcooley, I believe, was a pagan site before, because the Cistercians almost always built on top of pagan druidic sites. We saw the trees. Those trees there that were assigned that they had to have been a pagan site.
Yeah, those you're talking about the two yew trees in the centre.
Yes. So I'm pretty sure that the site would have been pagan. The yew and the ash tree being very, very important for rituals and pagan worship as well.
You are a walking encyclopedia. Your knowledge that you retain is astonishing. It's really incredible, Helena. What are you working on next? Where does your passion take you today? What's coming next for you?
So next, I've got a convention coming up, and I'm going to be giving a talk in the convention. The convention is called the Day of the Unexplained. It's going to be in St. Michael's Theatre in New Ross on the 18th of February, Saturday. I will be the first of 8 speakers to be speaking. I'll be speaking at 11, and we'll have speakers like Steve Parsons, author, head of parascience, former head of the SPR, Callum Cooper, psychologist, parapsychologist, and also an author with Steve Parsons of Paracoustics and other books. Kieran O'Keefe, parapsychologist as well, and I think he's been in Most Haunted and is known for his paranormal collaborations, and then other people that I'm really looking forward to hear. I think Dr. Gillian Murphy, historian, is going to be there as well, so it'll be nice to be sharing the stage with another woman. That would be really nice. And other professionals. And it's going to be a day, the first ever international paranormal convention in Ireland, organized by a good friend, Mary Nolan of Back in Time Paranormal Investigators, whom I met in Loftus Hall many, many years ago, and Anthony Kerrigan of Ghost Era. It's Ireland's leading paranormal group. So, and he's been in the paranormal for over 30 years. So very, very knowledgeable, very techie, much too techie for my own good. But I really appreciate their initiative. I think it's a great idea to bring people together. And we're going to talk about haunted history, witchcraft, the occult, paranormal, even UFOs, although I reserve, my opinion about UFOs. And it's a great day for people to come. There are still tickets available online at the website of St. Michael's People's Theatre, if people want to come. I've kind of kept my talk under wraps at the moment. I didn't want to give too much away, but New Ross was a Templar town. It was founded by William Marshall, the greatest knight that ever lived. And there is no coincidence as to why it was founded, and this is going to be in the book. But there is a New Ross, Wexford, New Ross, Canada, Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland, which has to do with these places. Where I'm currently at the moment, which I'm not going to mention for, safety issues, but it's in the southeast and has to do with these places. And the first church in a network of churches built by the Templars, Santiago de Compostela in Spain, which again goes back to the Milky Way, the Compostela being the field of stars or the way of St. James. And I recently discovered with that, my family's coat of arms on my mother's side has 7 stars. And I never knew why. And 7 stars, we're in a 7 year right now, a year of healing and spiritual energy. But the stars actually have to do with the 7 churches of this network of Templar churches built by the Templars. The first being Santiago, and the last, well, I'll leave that for the book. I won't say. But I've discovered a family connection, an important family connection, and that's been a real gift as well.
You are a real gift to the world, honestly, with this knowledge that you're bringing. And the Paranormal Convention, very lucky to have you as a speaker up there, and how wonderful that you're standing alongside such esteemed others as well. I hope you have a fantastic time there. Helena, you have to come back and tell us all about it.
Yeah, I have to say that I will be standing in some way or other because I'm recovering from a double leg fracture at the moment. So.
Of course you are. We both broke our legs as well. Isn't that strange?
I think it rubs off, so people should be careful about meeting us because they might end up with a broken leg.
That's so funny.
But I will be coming there in some capacity. I won't be walking very much, So what I'd like to mention next is I'm going to be doing a series of workshops. I'm currently teaching on sacred geography with the ancient energies in modern times. I'm also doing a workshop on the divine feminine on the 5th of February and archetypes, goddess archetypes. But I'm going to be working and doing a series of workshops with a colleague, a really good friend of mine called Francesca Foger. She is responsible for running the holistic fairs in Waterford, and she is a representative of doTERRA essential oils, which I really, really like. And we've had a really good friendship together, and we've done quite a few workshops online. And we got together recently when she came to visit me and, see me when I was unwell with the leg over Christmas. And we discussed about continuing to do things together, but also that would appeal the whole spiritual, psychic, and paranormal community too, because there's nothing really to cater for them at the moment in terms of not just crystals. Of course, there's crystals, but essential oils and mixtures and products for them. So we're coming out with a range of products for that, which is I'm very excited about.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. And then I've got the 2 books on the Knights Templar that I'll be doing. I've got another book with a website project that is going to be very unique, and it has to do with Ireland only. I cannot mention any more at the moment. I will tell you when we're offline, but that's that for now. And then I'm looking to also lecture more online in various places. So do look out for me. My events will be available on my website, on Eventbrite, on my Facebook page, and my Instagram page as well. So one thing that people don't know is that I actually do private consultations. So I do offer one-to-one workshops, but also private consultations and therapy and healing in Jungian psychology to address stress, anxiety, depression, also behavioral issues. Also, just if you want to improve your life and want to look at the patterns in your life, nutrition, well-being. I work with the archetypes in Jungian psychology, and I work with energy as well. I do energy cleansing of people, places as well. So many, many things. So if you want to know if I can help you, just go on my website and I have a consultations section and you can see all the things that I work with. And if in doubt, just drop me a line, happy to reply.
Do give us your website address, Helena, so people can go and look you up, and tell us what your social media platforms are as well.
So my website address is www.helenabscott, all in small letters, no spaces, so helenabscott.com. And I actually designed the website myself. A lot of people have been asking. It took me 6 months to do, and I thought I was going to die. But
can I just say, before you mention your other social media platforms, how beautiful your website is. Again, it's like a work of art in itself. It's so beautifully laid out. It's so clear, and it's just gorgeous. I love it. Love it.
Thank you, Anne. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I never thought I'd finish it. So thanks for appreciating the work. And then on Instagram, you can find me under Helena B. Scott as well. So if you just look for Helena B. Scott, you'll find it. It's just a very long address to read. And in Facebook, I have a personal page, but then I have my author page, and it's the usual address, facebook.com/Helena B. Scott. And then I think that's it. I think I've covered all of them. Oh, and Eventbrite. I'll give you the link for the Eventbrite with the actual link to all the workshops. But if you look at for me in Eventbrite for Helena B. Scott, you'll also find all my events on there as well.
Fantastic. Helena, it's been brilliant talking to you. I love your company. I love your knowledge. I know my listeners are going to get so much out of this episode, and I just want to wish you the very, very best with all of the projects that you've got coming up. And I hope to spend some more time with you in person soon, investigating another exciting place.
Thank you, Anne. And I just want to add one more thing, if I'm allowed. That's been a pleasure to have actually shared a day with a friend. We met, through the college, and I did a lot of workshops there, and I've been a member of the London College of Psychic Studies for many years. And I've always valued your work. And for me, you're one of my sort of biggest mentors, So it was a really good day to have shared a day with you doing what I do, with somebody who I respect so much. I remember when you were scrying in the water fountain, I was just amazed. I was like, of course she would be scrying. What else would she be doing?
Oh, thank you. That's so nice. That's lovely of you. Thank you.
So, and I'd like to recommend all the work that you do. For me, it's been an inspiration, and it's really valuable work. Your remote viewing workshops, your psychometry. You're one of those teachers that really, really knows her stuff, but teaches it with passion, and it's contagious. So thank you for existing.
Oh, bless you, Helena. It's so lovely of you. Well, thank you again for joining us here on Psychic Matters. And I really hope that in a few months' time, you'll come back again and let us know of more of your exciting adventures out there in the world.
Thank you, Anne. And look forward to another lunch and another date together. Thank you.
Helena B. Scott there, everyone. What an incredibly talented person she is. I was just blown away by her knowledge in so many different fields. She's really a unique and hugely knowledgeable individual. I highly recommend you buy her books, join her on one of her courses, or go and see her at one of her upcoming speaking events. Again, she'll be appearing in Ireland at Ireland's first paranormal convention entitled Day of the Unexplained. It's being held on Saturday, February 18th at St Michael's Theatre, New Ross, County Wexford. So book yourself a ticket, get yourself on a quick flight to Ireland. It's an event not to be missed. As with all of my podcast episodes, there are show notes available on my website, antheato.com, ANNTHEATO.com, under the podcast tab. And you can pick up all the URLs and links mentioned in this episode. They will lead you directly to Helena and all the incredible work she is doing out there in the world. It's time to say goodbye for now, and I'll be back in 2 weeks' time when I have another incredible guest lined up for you. Meanwhile, have a great couple of weeks, everyone, and next time you are walking anywhere on the earth, consider tuning into the land and into all those who have walked before you. And I invite you to consider this. How does the energy of the land speak to your soul? My name is Anne Theato, and thank you for listening to Psychic Matters.